Okay, we'll call the meeting to order. And the first item is notice of intent for ORD 2021 Big Y Foods. I think somebody from GZA is here, right?
Yes. Good evening, Commission. This is Dan Nitchie representing Big Y Foods. The project before the Commission is a notice of intent to remove large trees that have fallen on their perimeter fence around the property that is adjacent to Cottage Street. There was a large blowdown about 2-3 years ago down there that took out the electrical lines, the distribution line in the area as well. And some of those broken off branches are still there, damaging the fence line. We did meet with the city tree, or the forester, or the tree warden today, Alex Sherman, and we identified several trees, probably about 10 trees, some of which, probably 8 of those are live trees. They're right on the edge of Cottage Street before you touch their perimeter fence. And the truck traffic hits those all the time. It's damaging the vehicles. It's also dropping branches on the road and creating sort of a nuisance. So the city forester was gracious enough to meet us today, and we marked out all the trees that are going to be taken down. I can give you a couple of photos of that. What I'll do is, so that's kind of the project, is taking down, originally we were just going to take down dead limbs and trees that are, the trees that have fallen to damage the fence and repair the fence. Subsequently, the Big Y has really looked at that road and wanted some of these trees to be taken down. I just went through that explanation of how we showed that to the city forester. And the fence posts, the vertical posts are basically okay. It's just the top rail has to be fixed. Very minor work. It is all in buffer zone. This is only a bylaw wetland. And what do I do, Kevin? Just hit share screen and show you some photos, or?
Yeah, you should have access to that.
All right, so here's a site photo, or our site map. So this W1 is the wetland system that shows up under the state wetland system. We had this delineated back in 2017 through you folks for the expansion of the Big Y facility. This was identified and approved as an isolated wetland under the city ordinance only. It doesn't qualify as a federal wetland or a state wetland, primarily because of its proximity to other wetlands. So this wetland system, we already have. This extension down here was the wetland replication area that we added as compensation for impact to wetland in this area on this eastern edge back in 2019. So on the map, what we're showing you, the Xed area is the chain link fence. You can obviously see from turf to trees. This hatched area right here is the area that we're going to remove some trees that would have been approved by the tree warden today, just in this general area. He's also allowing us to mow this area. So there is some vegetation, some small black locusts. There's a lot, because this area doesn't get maintained very much, a lot of people are dumping trash as they drive by. So they want to clean this up from an aesthetic perspective and also discourage people from dumping their trash here, because it clearly looks like no one cares. So that's why I think that a lot of people are dumping the trash there. But in general, the work area is going to happen on the Big Y side, so the east side of this fence, and that's just limbs. He's not going to reach out and take like this dead tree. He's not going to take that out. He's only going to take things that are really close to the fence itself. This isn't like a cleanup job to try to make it look like a park. He just wants to clean up the aesthetic on the fence itself. He's more than willing to leave all that other dead and down trees there for the wildlife habitat value that it does provide to that isolated wetland. So that's really the crux of the project, is removing dead limbs and trees from the fence, repairing the fence, and taking live trees out. There's 2 dead ones in here, but primarily live trees that are on this edge. They're right up against the guardrail. They're pushing the guardrail out, and they're leaning out over the road, creating a hazard. So he was comfortable us removing those. He's going to, Alex is going to do a permit for that removal through Big Y, and that apparently that all runs through Alex. He writes the permit. They just work with each other and work it out. There's no, we don't fill out forms. He takes care of everything. It's my first time working with the city tree warden on this type of a project. So buffer zone work, we are going to be in the inner 50 just because of the proximity of the location, the roadway, and the limitations of where we're working. So we unfortunately have to be in that inner 50. And it's not wholesale clearing. This is really just cleaning up along that fence line.
Also, it also sounds like removing those trees and some of the other trees is a safety thing. There's a curve there.
It is, yes.
Yeah.
Let's see if I can share. How do I get my other screens? Oh,
Well, there you see the curve too.
yeah. So here we go. These are shots from today. So we marked the different trees. So this shot right here.
We're not seeing those.
Oh,
You might have to stop sharing and then
start again.
Just start again with a different program that
Thank
if you're
you.
using it.
Share. That better, Chris?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Perfect.
So we marked this particular, just it's sort of just for your reference. There's 4 flags here. 2 of them are on trees. This one is a branch. So this is a limb that's hanging out over the road, needs to be taken down. The back part of the tree, the main part of the trunk is vertical, not going to be an issue. So no issues. We don't need to take it down. You know, he's not trying to clearly cut the place for that purpose. It's really just to clean out the dead stuff that's along the edge. And so here's some other photographs. So here's just 2 photographs that are marking some of the trees. You can see how they're hanging out over the road here. And most of these broken branches are because the semis that go by here are hitting those. And obviously those just keep growing out into the road. So we're going to remove those trees, or just a limb. Like this one here is just a limb we're taking out. So it's very limited on what we're doing. I think that's it. I can give you, I'm going to have to stop and share again. Oh, sorry, same shots. I thought I had another photo for you. All right, so this is just back to the site plan for you.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I was kind of approaching this from, you know, our hazard mitigation type approach. It's removing dead, damaged stuff, restoring the fence, and then these ones that are hanging out over the street are just sort of, you know, safety hazard concern. So no particular red flags for me.
Let me ask you this, the commission as well. Would it be appropriate to condition this as a maintenance permit so they could keep an eye on this area for the next 5 years and remove material if it falls on the fence again? Or do you just want us to call you and tell you? I'm just trying to avoid another permit action in the next 5 years if other material comes down. How would you think that would be appropriate to handle that so that he can keep an eye on that? And what he probably would do is extend this permit every 3 years to keep sort of a maintenance thing open. I mean, we didn't really talk about this as being a full-on maintenance program, but it would be limited to just dead trees that are damaging the fence. And if we were to take any live trees out, we'd be communicating with the forester on that action and you know, apprise you at that time. How does the commission feel about that? What I'm saying is, if we get a 5-year permit first off, then every 3 years after that, we can ask for another extension.
Yeah, you'd have to submit and since we have to continue this anyway,
Yeah.
you'd have to submit a maintenance clause to add to this.
Okay.
And work with Kevin on it, but I would think that rather than the maintenance having to come before the commission, it would be approved by the commission agent as needed. So
Okay.
work with Kevin on some wording for that. But if you add it to this filing, then you can do that. You won't have to refile every time.
Perfect. All right, I'll talk with Kevin about getting the correct language in there to add, so you guys can work discuss that and decision next meeting.
Yeah,
And then it would just require a phone call? I mean, if you were going to do any work.
or more likely just an email. So, you know, there's
An email, yeah.
a trail. But I
Okay.
think that's completely appropriate. We've done that with parks in the past. There's no reason we couldn't do it with a private entity. So
Yeah, what I'll do is I'll work with Big Y to come up with sort of a template of sort of a document we can provide you, Kevin. It would identify the work area, maybe a photograph of a specific tree or the damage they're trying to repair, just so you're really clear on what we're doing and where we're doing it. If that's helpful.
that works.
Okay.
Dan, I'll just request that you stop sharing screen.
Sorry. Thank you.
I think I can do that myself, but I don't know.
Okay.
Are there other questions from the commission? Hearing none, a motion to continue for the purposes of public input, as we are required to under the current conditions, is in order.
I make a motion, we continue this for the purpose of public input.
And Kevin, do you want to do your normal?
Yes, anyone from the public who will be viewing this video, if you would like to provide comment or concerns, you can do so in two different ways. You can do via email, that is to my personal or my work email, kchafee@springfieldcityhall.com, or you can do it by phone in voicemail, 413-787-6234.
Thank you, Kevin. Is there a second to continuing?
I'll second.
Thank you. That was Clarence, I believe.
No, I think
That was me.
Oh, I'm sorry. It
It
was
was Pete.
Peter.
Peter, okay. And roll,
Peter.
Fred,
Yes.
Yes.
Clarence,
Yes.
Juanita,
Yes,
Peter,
Yes.
Chris.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thanks, Dan.
You bet, guys. Take care.
Okay, that brings us to continued items. Boston Road, request for determination.
Yep, I believe Ryan Nelson from R. Levesque Associates is here, and also Austin and Elaine Graham are watching.
Hello, everyone. Ryan Nelson from R. Levesque Associates. As stated, this is a continuation of an RDA hearing we opened up last time we had met. Since then, Kevin and I did a site visit for the property. We walked the delineated boundaries. There are three, just to recap, there are three isolated vegetated wetlands located on the property. There's one here that was formed somewhat recently as a result of a lot of abandoned earthwork activity. There's an isolated wetland located back here, and then one located here. It should also be noted that this most southerly IVW is also isolated land subject to flooding based on the square footage of that wetland, and then a calculation of, you know, holding at least 6 inches of standing water exceeded the threshold of a 1/4 acre foot for isolated land subject to flooding. But it should also be noted that only a portion of that IVW is located on the subject property, with the property line being this dashed line here. Aside from that, I will, sure, go ahead, Kevin.
Yeah, actually, Ryan, if you wouldn't mind to stop
Yep.
sharing screen. I just, actually, before you, well, you did it already. So he pointed out that on the screen you were just looking at, it was kind of the top left, that little area where last meeting I had a memory that I thought that's where from that old project, that was the location of the wetland replication area, because they had done some filling. I pulled an old file from that project, and when I walked the site with Ryan, we compared the two, and it's in the exact same footprint. So I'm confident that actually is that replication from that old file. And Ryan had mentioned that it seemed like there was an overflow or some sort of structure there. When we looked on site, it's a very old structure. And actually on the plan that I found, it shows a remnant structure that was to remain in place. So there's an old pipe that exists out there. Who knows the origin of it, but it predated the project. And in that exact location on the plan, showing this old, it kind of looks like a manhole. That's why Ryan thought maybe it was considered an overflow, but it's definitely not a modern structure. The exact location on the plan was, field verified. So this, I believe, was the only outstanding item from that old order that we were kind of hung up on whether or not we could close it out. So Ryan, if you want to stop sharing screen, I will share my screen and show you that that plan. So it's not the same orientation. You'd have to like turn this to the left, but you'll see the large isolated land subject to flooding is down here that he had mapped. This is the property boundary, so only a bit of it is. And then in that back corner, you'd have to zoom in, but you can see right here, it says wetland replication area. And then in that same area right here is that structure with an old pipe attached to it. So I thought that boded well for closing out that old order that's lingering on this project, and also for establishing the current boundaries that I felt were appropriately flagged on site today.
Kevin, it appeared from the map you just showed us that pipe actually goes all the way out to Boston Road.
Maybe I'll show it again. It's an old thing, so who knows if it's.
So if you can slide that up the other way.
Oh yeah, it just kind of keeps going.
Yeah, it goes all. Looks like it catches one catch basin on Boston Road.
It's really weird because this is a very, these topo lines, it creates like a bowl.
Right.
So it's at the top of that. So why it would accept anything, and we were curious. It says 12-inch ABS to remain. Ryan ventured a guess that stands for asbestos pipe.
It could be.
Kind of suggesting again that it's very old, because there's a pipe right here too, a PVC pipe that kind of goes from. We're not quite sure where it goes, but then I guess you follow this line, and then it either terminates here or continues to move. I mean, this is a bit busy to look at.
Right. Yeah.
It's low resolution, but.
So do you think it terminates at that, because then that's the new foundation? I wonder if they stopped it or they cut it.
I would guess because the structure that it looks kind of like a very, very old catch basin. There, it's jam full with, like, it's packed with sediment and there's no water in there.
Nothing's moving.
No,
anyway.
I don't mean that structure.
Yeah.
I mean the new one up by the front of Boston Road. It
The
seems
foundation.
to die there. And I wonder if when they were putting in the foundation, maybe they cut it or maybe it's under the foundation.
Plugged it with concrete.
Yeah, and Jimmy Hoffa and everything. I mean, who knows what's under there?
So anyways,
And they didn't do a basement in that, but they did do a footing. So they would.
Yeah.
Which still remains to be demolished for whatever future use happens. So what the good news to me is that when Ryan, without that prior knowledge, went out to delineate the area, he delineated an isolated wetland where they did the replication. So it, in fact, did take, and still 15 years later.
So it's a replication that worked.
That actually worked, which is kind of a miracle.
Yeah.
Considering it had very little way to get water.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So, so anyways, so that was a kind of a big thing that we saw today. And then the rest of the, it's the large wetland that Ryan showed, that's partially offsite, partially on-site is really straightforward. It's a bowl. The line is at the toe of slope kind of, or just slightly up. It was I would say a conservative delineation. The other one is certainly wet and has the soils, but you can see all the fill that's impounded around it, and it really is like, although it does fit under our the definition in our bylaw, it certainly is like a result of disturbance. So I was happy with the delineation. I think it's fine to move forward. We did in the end, it doesn't really affect the project at all, but we did reclassify the large wetland as isolated land subject to flooding, as was presented. That does bring into the fact that it's jurisdictional to the Wetlands Protection Act, but it doesn't really change anything because it's not afforded a buffer zone by the Wetlands Protection Act, and the local bylaw does afford it a buffer zone. So it's more of it was just to keep everything straight. We wanted to make sure that, yes, if we are approving that, it's as one thing, and then the other two are jurisdictional only to the city. So
Are there any public comments, Kevin?
No.
So what you're looking for us to do, I assume, is close the public hearing.
Close the hearing, and then
you're gonna do a positive determination?
Yep, we actually have a few because they requested a few different things on the form. So there'll be 3 total determinations, all positive. But one will just say we're approving the wetland boundaries delineated on site. 2, it'll say that it is indeed, the area is indeed subject to the jurisdiction of the local bylaw. And then the third one was that one wetland is indeed jurisdictional to the Wetlands Protection Act. And
is that all going to be on one document, or does it require separate motions?
No, it's one thing.
Okay. All right, are there any other questions from the commission members? Hearing none, is there a motion to close the public hearing?
I'll make a motion. Go
I'll
ahead,
make a
Fred.
motion to close the public hearing.
Thank
I'll
you, Fred.
second it.
And Juanita seconded it.
Roll, Fred,
Yes.
Juanita,
Yes.
Clarence,
Yes.
Peter,
Yes.
Chris.
Yes. Thank you. Has Franconia still continued, Kevin, or is that?
Nope, I think we can, there's some outstanding items we need to discuss, but that one we can move on with. So did you want to wait to do the determination, the vote on the determination till the end?
Well, you know what? It just says continued items, so I think we could do it now. Why don't we do it? That way we won't forget it.
Okay, so there'll
You
be
want
a motion
for, go ahead.
a +2, a +5, and a +1.
Someone making that motion?
I'll make a motion. We issue a +2, a +5, and a +1 for the Boston Road property.
There a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you.
Roll, Fred,
Yes.
Clarence,
Yes.
Peter,
Yes.
Juanita,
Yes.
Chris.
Yes, thank you.
All right, thanks, Ryan.
So now we're on to Franconia.
Yes.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Welcome.
So we have Steve and Adrian, I think.
That is correct.
I'm assuming, oh, they're both on. Both
Yes.
screens have come on. Okay. So go ahead. I don't know who wants to lead.
I'll lead. So good afternoon. My name is Steve D'Ambrosio. I work with GZA, and I'm here tonight with my colleague Adrian Dunk on behalf of the Springfield Department of Parks, Buildings, and Recreation Management for the continuation of the maintenance of irrigation water intake project at Franconia Municipal Golf Course. And I will share my screen. Hopefully I can get the right one this time. Are you guys seeing the plans?
Yep.
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Well, we're
Very
not
good.
seeing the plan. We're seeing the cover sheet. Is
The
that
cover
what you-
sheet. Yes. Yes. The plan set.
Yes.
So I think maybe actually it'll makes more sense to go over the DEP comments, because I think that's the last. That's where we left off at the last meeting, was just our responses, our formal responses to the comments from Mass DEP. So if the commission would like, I can go over those 6 comments point by point.
That would be good. Thank you.
Fantastic. So the first comment was the commission should carefully review the aerial photos emailed to the commission and the applicant's representative on the 16th of February showing possible violations of the act by the removal of overstory and understory vegetation in BVW and buffer zone to BVW or bank adjacent to the pond, and mowing to the BBW and other vegetation directly adjacent to the stream and within the 25-foot riverfront area and in bordering land subject to flooding. Cumulative resource area impacts of approximately 15,000 square feet and converting these areas to lawn. However, though false color aerial imagery suggests hydric soil conditions for those areas noted above, the plans do not call these areas out as BVW. It is unknown if hydric soil conditions were reviewed in the referenced area using the disturbed sites criteria or how the current delineation compares to the previous delineations. Regardless, for any unpermitted alteration of the resource areas on site, the commission should require restoration of said areas. The riverfront area can prevent degradation of water quality by filtering sediments, toxic substances such as heavy metals, and nutrients such as phosphorus and nitrogen from stormwater, non-point pollution sources, and the river itself. Sediments are trapped by vegetation before reaching the river. Nutrients and toxic substances may be detained in plant root systems or broken down by soil bacteria. So our response follows in bold type. My apologies, it's on this page. GZA has no specific knowledge regarding the potential prior removal of vegetation within resource areas or associated buffer zone. The submitted delineation reviewed both undisturbed and disturbed areas in the vicinity of the proposed work. The undisturbed areas met the criteria for wetlands based on the dominance of wetland plants and the presence of wetland hydrology indicators. Where the vegetation appeared disturbed, the delineation is based on the presence of hydric soils and indicators of hydrology. Some areas outside the delineation did include relic compacted hydric soils. However, these areas lacked evidence of hydrophytic plants or wetland hydrologic indicators and did not appear to meet wetland criteria. GZA has revised the plans to include wooden stakes around the irrigation pond to demarcate the wetland boundary and the 25-foot riverfront area. The wooden stakes shall be 4 feet long, painted fluorescent orange, and driven into the ground a maximum of 18 inches, which will provide a minimum reveal of 2.5 feet. The markers will alert the golf course grounds crew to avoid maintenance work in the vicinity of the irrigation pond to the boundary demarcated by the wooden stakes, except for a 15-foot wide access way on the south bank of the irrigation pond The proposed accessway will provide a stable access to conduct future maintenance of the irrigation pond water intake structure. So if I can just go back to the plan set, we added a 6th sheet to the plan set, and these squares represent where the wooden stakes would be placed. So it follows along the BVW, and in these areas, the 25-foot riverfront, and loops around the BVW on this side. This area here has been cleared since before, just looking at aerial imagery, it's been cleared before 97. It's part of this golf, here's the 14th tee, this is the 14th fairway and the green. But we're looking to limit the maintenance, the grounds crew maintenance of this area to these wooden stakes, and to allow this area to just grow back any vegetation that may have been cleared in the past.
So the wooden stakes are going to be painted orange, is that what you said?
Yes. Yeah, so that the grounds crew will see it and know not to maintain the area between Pecusik Brook, the irrigation pond, and these stakes.
That's a lot of orange stakes.
It is.
I mean, the reality from the aerial photos, the most significant parts that I could tell were kind of in the general area of where that near the pump house, near that access point.
Yeah.
That's where I could see the most change. And now they've planted some like river birches down there, as like they seem more, although they're an appropriate species, they seem like they were more decorative. So I think that was whatever their intention was encroach and then replant with. And so obviously those can stay, but it's more the like, stop trying to maintain this as lawn, because some of it is upland, but is in, riverfront area. But in that lower, if we're treating this as north-south, the southerly little piece that comes out, it's BVW and it's clearly wet, but you can tell that it's maintained as lawn. So I think that's like a positive that we can get out of this, that a couple of these fingers that come out that are clearly BVW can be allowed to go back to, hydrologically what it wants to be. So I thought this was a good sort of compromise that, yes, at some point in the past, there has been encroachment, but this allows for some restoration of the riverfront area, some restoration of BVW, and still maintaining the goals of what they're trying to do down there.
Creates a lot of places for the golfers to lose their balls.
Yep. It's incentive to get better.
That's right.
If there's no further questions on question 1, then I'll move on to the next question.
Yep.
I'll paraphrase this one here. I won't read the entire thing, but it dealt with just the Army Corps data sheets that were used, and then a discussion about whether or not maybe I should read it. My apologies. Army Corps data sheets were used. However, please note that under the wetlands regulations, only 2 criteria are required, not 3 as for federal wetlands. The Commission, during its review of the NOI and its issuance of an order of conditions, may include a finding of fact in the order that BVW and/or other resource area boundaries are not being approved under the order, which would then leave them more time to conduct a more thorough review of the boundaries. Many commissions find that snow-covered ground is not suitable, or is not a suitable time for confirming resource area boundaries. It is assumed, unless otherwise noted in the OOC, that any resource area boundaries noted on the plans are correct and therefore legally binding. If the Commission is not sure if boundaries are correct, then a finding of fact can be appropriate. While GZA provided wetland delineation data on Army Corps data sheets, we also understand that under the Wetlands Protection Act, only 2 of the 3 criteria are required. GZA delineated areas which exhibited 2 wetland criteria as wetlands, while we identified as upland areas where we observed only 1 or no indicators. Additionally, Joe Rogers, PWS from GZA, delineated the wetland resource areas, and he met with Kevin on site on Friday, March 5th to review the delineation in the field. GZA understands that the review lacks snow cover and that no adjustments to the delineation were made.
Yep, the whole area that we walked was not covered in snow. So Joe took a soil core and showed me the difference between some of the areas that those false color images kind of picked up as wet, and he justified his decision not to extend it. I mean, these were really steep sloped areas that were super compacted, and they just didn't, they had like you had presented, showed sort of remnant of maybe formerly wet soil, but you know, with the history of this property being around for so long, it no longer demonstrates the 2 characteristics. So I still feel that their delineation was appropriate, and even I think it might have even been more extensive than the early 2000s filing, if I'm correct.
Thank you. Are there any questions on this, the answer to question 2? Hearing none, go ahead with question 3, please.
Okay. The commission should note that the extent of impacts to BLSF is likely a guess, as this area has no base flood elevation, as is noted in the NOI, and simply overlaying the flood map onto a plan will not provide the parties with presumptive BLSF location. Table 4 shows impacts to BLSF apparently in the water column, but BLSF extends outward from the bank. It cannot be located in the water column. So GZA's response: no FEMA flood profile is available for this stretch of Pacusick Brook. Therefore, the BLSF extent was based on the FEMA firm mapping. The area is mapped as Zone A, which by definition has no identified base flood elevation. GZA did not pursue further study on the extent of the BLSF or depth of potential flooding, as the proposed work within BLSF is limited to temporary placement of construction mats, excuse me, which will be removed following the completion of construction, and which will not constrain or increase the lateral extent of a flood event. Table 4 mistakenly included impacts from the turbidity curtain, which are within LUWW. The only proposed work in BLSF is the temporary placement of construction mats for access, identified as 1,205 square feet in the NOI. A revised table 4 is attached, and included with this, we just updated that table to remove the small amount of BLSF that we had for the turbidity curtain. Any questions on that? So really, I guess the discussion is the determination of this line, which is the floodplain line. The only information available to us was the information from the FEMA mapping, which we overlaid on our plan. There's no elevation associated with this flood boundary, so this really is the best information that we're able to obtain.
Yeah, I think you clarified the response and updated the table. So,
thank
you. Not that in this area it's that much of a difference anyway. It's wide open area where if it extends beyond where that dotted line is, it's no big deal. So,
but I think the important part is that you were trying to, or the applicant was trying to just demonstrate that, like, yes, we will be in this general area, but no, there will be no changes to capacity for flood events.
Yeah, you're not taking away the capacity at all.
Item 4, for the in-situ BVW restoration, the commission can still require monitoring reports to ensure that the BVW is restored. The planned in-situ BVW restoration for this project is the removal of the construction mats. No seeding, planting, or monitoring is proposed, as the construction mats will be in place in the wetland for less than 2 weeks, and the work is planned outside of the growing season. Therefore, adverse resource damage is not anticipated.
Was he trying to get at that, or was he trying to get at, if you're letting the area go back, a report annually to see whether it has returned to a more vegetated? What do you think he was really trying to get at?
Well, that's a good point.
It may have, because when we had our consultation, he had mentioned that with the encroachment that he had seen with aerial photos, he's fine with the idea of this in situ restoration. So it's not like it's going to be an extensive planting plan. We could just require like a check-in at year 1 just to show that it is in fact being avoided by the grounds crew.
Yeah, it would be nice to have some pre-pictures on file and then some pictures a year from now, and you get to see what plants are starting to return, and maybe even a picture year at, because that should return pretty much to a vegetated area, I would think, with more wetland plants.
Yeah, and sure the seed stock is there. It just needs
Yeah.
to stop being maintained.
Okay. Item 5, guidance on dewatering will be provided to the commission if that is necessary. The actual work description should be expanded upon in terms of equipment used, its location, and how the dredged material will be moved from the water to the dewatering area. Dewatering basins, filter bags, and sediment traps do not always correctly function depending on soil type. Insufficient information was included in terms of dealing with the water that leaves the sediment reuse area. If this information is going to be the responsibility of the contractor, most commissions will require that the contractor provide said information to the commission for their review and approval prior to the start of work. GZA's response: no dewatering of the irrigation pond is planned as part of this project. The work will be performed in the wet. Sediment will be removed from within and in the immediate vicinity of the irrigation pond water intake via excavator and placed into the bed of a dump truck. The dump truck will transport and offload the sediment to the proposed reuse area where the sediment will be allowed to dewater. The reuse area will be ringed with a combination silt fence straw bale erosion control barrier, which will remain in place until the sediments are finally stabilized, i.e. dewatered, graded, mulched, and seeded. And if we go back to the plans, so this is the area we're proposing to work. The excavator will be on these temporary mats. The dump truck, we expect to be on this portion of it. Excavator will grab the material from in the pond, place it on the dump truck, and the dump truck will come up to the proposed sediment reuse area and dump the material where it will be allowed to dewater. Then once it's dewatered, it'll be graded into the slope, mulched and seeded. Are there any questions on that point?
Not for me, no.
Nope.
Okay, on to item 6. The commission should verify that the volume of material to be dredged remains under 100 cubic yards by understanding existing conditions, contours, and the proposed elevation changes. GZA confirmed to the commission at the February 23rd, 2021 public hearing that the material to be removed will be less than 100 cubic yards. Supporting calculations are attached. So if we go back to the plans and we look at, this is a map of existing conditions. So these are the existing pond depths prior to any material being removed. And we're proposing an approximately 30-foot diameter circle of impact centered around the end of this water intake. So what I did is I said the average existing elevation is -2, and we're proposing to go down to -8. This is the bottom of sediment contours. So if all the sediment were removed, this is the expected elevations that we'd obtain. So using that information, this is just a quick calculation. The average existing pond bottom is -2. The aerial extent of the excavation at the existing pond bottom, we're saying it's a 34-foot diameter circle. The bottom elevation of the proposed excavation is elevation -8. And we're proposing side slopes of 2 to 1. The expected aerial extent of the bottom of the excavation is a 10-foot diameter circle, so it's a truncated cone. And the resultant volume, this is the equation for a truncated cone, and we come up with 92.8 cubic yards. So we are below the 100 cubic yard threshold. Any questions on item 6? Okay, and the final item, number 7, the plans are stated as being existing conditions, but it appears the information provided is from a previous filing. As north of the pond, only 1 sand trap currently exists, and the plan shows 3, not there since 2015 per aerial imaging. The base plans did reference an earlier drawing set for background information, resulting in this discrepancy in the location and number of sand traps north of the irrigation pond. However, the plan information shown within the proposed limit of work accurately depicts existing conditions. In response to MassDEP's concern, GZA has revised the drawings to show the correct number of sand traps north of the irrigation pond. So if we just go back to the plan set, and in any view that shows this green, the 13th green, we showed the 1 sand trap now. We brought in newer aerial photography and put in the correct sand trap location. And that's it really for the comments. I don't have anything in my notes that there were other questions from the commission regarding the project. It was mostly just our formal response to DEP that you were looking for.
That's my memory as well. Are there questions from the commission at this point? Kevin, were there any public comments?
There were not.
Then a motion to close the public hearing is in order.
I make the motion, we close the public hearing for Franconia Irrigation Pond.
I'll second.
I'll second.
Who seconded?
I think it was Peter.
Either one.
Peter.
Okay. Roll. Fred,
So Fred had to drop off. Yep.
okay. Clarence,
Yes.
Juanita,
Yes.
Peter,
Yes.
Chris.
Yes. Thank you. You can unshare your screen now.
Oh,
We'll be okay.
sorry.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Kevin, there were no public comments. Kevin, are you ready with an order at this point?
Yep. So the commission would be approving work within the 50-foot no disturb zone. The commission would be approving the approximate 95 cubic yards of sediment removal based on the calculations and plan set submitted. The commission would be approving the temporary impacts of the mats for access. The commission would be approving that new plan set piece that we saw regarding the in situ restoration of the riverfront area and associated BVW areas. That we would require a 1-year check-in report on the in situ restoration. and one that I, if the commission is amenable, that I would like to add that during active removal of the sedimentation, that there would be a construction monitor on site.
Okay. Are you, do you anticipate letting them play on that hole while you're doing this work?
My understanding is they want to do this work before the golf course opens, if at all possible.
Okay. So anybody who would be out there playing is going to be someone who's out there playing unofficially. So, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, Kevin, do you think maybe we could say that there be a second report on the condition of the bordering vegetated wetland?
2 years?
Yeah, 2 years.
Okay. Other than that, it's our standard order of conditions.
And just as a suggestion, I think if you get photographic evidence, Kevin, that's going to be the best for you, rather than a description.
Okay.
If there's no questions, does someone want to make a motion to issue the order as read by Kevin?
I'll make a motion to issue the order as read by Kevin. For
Thank you, Clarence.
Franconia.
And Peter seconded it.
Okay, roll. Fred? Fred left. Clarence?
Yes.
Juanita?
Yes.
Peter?
Yes.
Chris?
Yes. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
I'll be in touch, Steve and Adrian.
Thank you very much, Kevin.
Yeah.
Take care.
Good evening. And Fairhaven Drive, 81 Fairhaven Drive is the next continued item.
I'm just keeping it on there. We haven't resolved the legal issues, so.
Okay, so it's continued. It's still continued.
Still continued.
That brings us to the approval of the minutes.
I make a motion, we approve the minutes of February, right? February what? What were they?
Is it the 23rd?
26, I think.
26th?
Yeah, I think it was the 26th.
Okay, of the 26th,
23rd.
Second?
23rd.
Yeah.
I'll second.
Okay, thank you.
Roll. Clarence?
Yes.
Juanita?
Yes.
Peter?
Yes.
Chris?
Yes. Thank you.
You know, I have just one question. That Pecoosit Brook, that's the Pecoosit from the park, right?
Yes. Yep.
I
It
was
goes all
trying
the
to,
way up.
I was trying to think of the geography, but yeah,
Yeah,
you're right.
It comes in, goes under Dickens. It leaves the golf course, goes under it through a conduit under Dwight Road there. Then it runs through a valley until it goes under Dickinson. Again, remember where we had the washout?
Yeah,
on
okay.
Dickinson? That's
Yeah.
the Pecoosit, right near your house.
Oh, I know, that's the Pecoosit there.
Yeah, that's
But
all
further
connected.
up.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's all
yeah.
connected through there.
Like near Tiffany School.
It goes right through there, down by
Yeah,
the end of
okay.
Draper, goes all
Okay.
down through there.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep. Having gone through the agenda, the only other thing that's in order is in motion to adjourn.
I make a motion, we adjourn. Oh, go ahead, Peter.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
You?
Bye, everybody.
Roll. Clarence?
Oh,
Yes.
Juanita?
yes.
Peter?
Yes.
Chris?
Yes. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Good
take care.
night.
Stay safe, stay
Be
well.
safe.
Night.
Good night.